Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Super Wild Card Weekend picks. Before we get into the wild card round games, not much I would say for week number 18. Obviously, for a couple of things. I mean, there was a lot of question marks in week 18. Obviously, I think most of us are still amazed at what happened in the Bills versus Patriots game after the emotions of what happened to Damar Hamlin. The Bills going in for a kickoff return touchdown to start the game by Ward, and then Ward did it again later on in the football game. He did two kick return and a punt return for a touchdown. I mean, that is just unbelievable. I mean, you couldn't have write a better script on something like that. But given how the playoff structure structured out, I mean, when I made my special edition video last week, I was almost perfect on my projected picks, except for the in the NFC where the Seahawks ended up getting that last playoff spot, and it was kind of shocking to see how the Detroit Lions going in the Lambeau Field having nothing to play for and really took down the Packers in that game. And basically, there is a ton of question marks now in this for the Packers in the offseason. We don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to still be there going into next season. I mean, the Packers, there's huge question marks now going forward to see what will happen with him, if he's going to stay in Green Bay or move on to another team. I don't see him retiring yet, but I think he's going to play for another team. I don't think he's going to stay in Green Bay, given how the way it's looking right now. The Packers look like they're more in the rebuilding mode. I mean, they didn't have that great of a season. They lost games that they should have. They lost games that they should have won, and obviously, there's a lot of question marks going forward with the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers. But when I look at the other games and all, a lot of it was expected, and I think a lot of question marks for me personally. I mean, I had to go to a team that I follow a lot, and that is the Chargers. And what Brendan Stanley was doing, keeping the starters in for so long, all the way into the fourth quarter, which could end up being costly for the Chargers because they really didn't have nothing to play for. And obviously, we don't know the status of Joey Bosa and Mike Williams. They're keys for that Chargers going into this playoff, going into the wild card weekend in their playoff game. But when I look at some other things that went on in week number 18, obviously Philly getting the number one seed, and obviously question marks for the Cowboys going forward. Are they in for a nightmarish wild card game that they have against the Bucs? Remember, Tom Brady has not lost to the Cowboys. He's a perfect 7-0 right now against them. 5 times when he was a Patriot, he's beaten the Cowboys, and 2 with the Bucs. So this is going to bring out some huge question marks to see if Tom Brady will still remain undefeated against the Cowboys going into the playoff game on Monday. But other than that, I mean, it was pretty much as expected the way the playoff seedings and with the way we looked at what was going to be possible. And obviously, I was going to mention Miami getting that last playoff spot, which I thought the Steelers were going to get it, but it turns out Miami actually, they played so terribly against the Jets, they were fortunate enough to win to get that last playoff spot. Anyways, it's now time to talk about Super Wildcard Weekend, and let's get into it. I will go with the AFC first, and then we'll get into the NFC games first, okay? So beginning in the AFC wild card game, let's begin with the first one. AFC wild card game, the Chargers versus the Jaguars. The Chargers are, by some miracle by the odds makers, they actually have them as a 2-point favorite in this game. I really think that number is going to go down to 1, and it could end up as you pick 'em status before kickoff. Don't be surprised if it does. Now, Herbert played majority of the game up until I think the fourth quarter, and then Brandon Stanley had finally said get him out of there, which I don't know, he should have got him out there much earlier than that. He was 25 of 37, 273 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And for Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars, obviously he had to play. He had to play in that final game against Tennessee. They were fortunate enough to beat the Titans. Trevor Lawrence, 20 of 32, 212 yards, 1 touchdown, and no interceptions. This is possibly, out of all the games this weekend, the toughest game to pick. This is really a 50-50 odds of who wins this game because both Herbert and Lawrence are making their playoff debuts, and a lot of it's going to determine here who can handle the pressure in their first playoff game. And when I look at it right now, look, the Chargers and the Jaguars met earlier in the season, and obviously injuries played the role in that game, and the Jaguars ended up beating them. But it is very different from that first meeting now. The Chargers are a little bit more healthy. Well, except we don't know the status of Bosa and Williams. That could play another factor in this one here. But when I look at this Charger team and the amount of confidence they built themselves all the way up until Week 18, they have really been able to really fight through some adversity here. Now, the Jaguars had to really play all their games. They got red hot at the right moment to end up getting, well, Tennessee was already beat up. They didn't have Tannehill. He was gone for the season. And it was kind of expected for the Jaguars to win their division. A lot of it's going to come down to who doesn't turn the ball over, who makes big plays and all that. It is a tough pick here. But treat this pick with caution, treat this with a grain of salt here, because this could go either way in my honest opinion. I think it's going to be a good one in Jacksonville. But when I look at this game and all, I'm actually leaning towards the Chargers this time, because they got more of their confidence back. Justin Herbert finally playing at an elite level, and a lot of their starters have come back. Keenan Allen is back, and I think a lot of it in terms of the running game, they really have done a fantastic job. I think Jacksonville's defense is going to be in for a long game here, but it should be a very close game in this one here. I'm going to pick the Chargers -2. I think Chargers on the road will go into Jacksonville and beat the Jaguars here. I'm going to pick the Chargers here at -2, Chargers over the Jaguars. All right, the next AFC wildcard game, the Dolphins versus the Bills. I'm actually going to keep this one very short here. There is a ton of question marks for this Miami Dolphins team. They were fortunate enough to win an 11-6 game against the Jets just to get into the postseason. And now you got a quarterback situation here. Tula's not going to be playing in this game from what I've heard as of the time of this video. I don't know about Bridgewater either. They had to go with Skylar Thompson as quarterback for the Dolphins, and I don't know how they managed to win that game, but somehow they did. Now, for Buffalo, Josh Allen did play. He was 19 of 31, 253 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he had 1 interception here. I would say the Bills caught a break here, to be honest with you. I don't think there's any way. Look, if Tula was playing in this game, obviously he's not going to, obviously because of the concussion protocol he had after the game against the Packers on Christmas Day. He's not ready for this game, and it's just fortunate. Look, if Tula would have been in this game, the odds would be a lot more different, because the Bills are a 13-point favorite in this game, and rightfully so. Miami could not have gotten into the playoffs by default, and obviously they know the Bills very well, but unfortunately they're not healthy. The Dolphins, I think, are going to be in for a long game. This is a game the Bills should easily win here. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins try to make it a game in the first half, but I think the Bills will pull away in the second half. And obviously, it's going to be cold in Buffalo. I just don't see the Dolphins finding a way to win this time around. I'm picking the Bills. That's pretty obvious in this one here. The Bills are just a bit more healthy, and they're on a mission. They're on a mission. They want to get to the Super Bowl. And obviously, the Dolphins are just not going to, they're barely not, I don't think they're going to show up in this game. I think the Bills should easily beat the Dolphins here, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's a close game in the first half, but the second half, the Bills pull away. So yeah, picking the Bills here, -13, that should be pretty obvious on this one here. Bills over the Dolphins. All right, and let's go to the last AFC wildcard game, the Ravens versus the Bengals. The Bengals are an 8.5-point favorite. Obviously, they played last week, and obviously that was Baltimore had to go with Anthony Brown as quarterback. Lamar Jackson, no word if he's going to play in this game, and that really does kind of hurt the Ravens' chances here. We don't know about Tyler Huntley. I don't know if he's going to be playing in this game either. There's, like I said, a lot of question marks going on. We don't know what's going to happen with the Ravens. Look, if Lamar Jackson any word if he will play in this game, I would give the Ravens some sort of a chance here. But when I look at the way that the Bengals have played, and obviously what the NFL tried to do to them, obviously if the Bengals would have lost last week and had to been determined by a coin flip for home field advantage in this game, the Bengals, I really believe here, have momentum going into this. They've already swept the regular season with the Ravens. The Bengals, as I said, they're an 8.5-point favorite in this one here, and I would say that's right. Because we don't know the status of Lamar Jackson for the Ravens, if he's going to play. He didn't practice, as far as I know. And that really just brings up, it's almost like the Ravens are just going to throw in the towel in this game. I don't know. I would like to see if the Ravens can show up, at least in this game. But when I look at this game here, look, the Bengals are just more complete. I know they kind of stumbled a little bit in the last game, but I just think now playoff time here, the Bengals, they are on a mission here as well as the Bills are to get to the Super Bowl again. And the way I look at it right now, if the Ravens had everybody healthy or available, I would give the Ravens a little bit of a chance. But the way things are going, we don't know if Lamar Jackson is going to play. We don't know if Huntley's going to play. Who's going to be quarterback? We don't know. I'm picking the Bengals. That's pretty obvious on that one. I'm picking the Bengals at -8.5. I don't know if Baltimore's going to be ready for this game. And I'm going to base it off of that. I think the Bengals will win this game. It could be a close game, but I just think the Bengals are a much better team in this matchup here. And yeah, I'm picking the Bengals at -8.5. Bengals over the Ravens. All right, switching over now to the NFC games. All right, okay, let's begin with the first NFC wildcard game. The Seahawks versus the 49ers. Geno Smith last week in an overtime victory over the Rams. He went 19 of 31, 213 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Brock Purdy last week for the 49ers did play the entire game. He went 15 of 20, 170 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. The 49ers are a 9.5 point favorite in this one here. And given how their defense has dominated in their last 6 games, I don't know if the Seahawks have enough, given what they've gone through this season, having Geno Smith at quarterback, and it looked like they were going to be in the rebuilding mode all season. But the way that Pete Carroll has done a fantastic job of really bringing alive the Seahawks team. And obviously, who knows the 49ers better than Pete Carroll? But when I look at it, when I look at this game here, look, the Seahawks really are not like the Russell Wilson Seahawks and the Legion of Boom type of team, because this is really more of a team that should be in the rebuilding mode here. But when I look at this game, if the Seahawks might make it a game in the first half, but the 49ers and that defense, I'm not going to go against them. I'm picking the 49ers in this one here. 49ers should beat the Seahawks pretty handily in this one here. So yeah, that one's kind of this one is going to keep that one short on this one here. Yeah, I'm going to pick the 49ers on this one here. I think the 49ers will beat the Seahawks here. 49ers at 9.5 over the Seahawks. All right, NFC wildcard game number 2, the Giants versus the Vikings. The Giants rested the majority of their starters last week against the Eagles, so obviously, which for good reasons why, to get Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley a little bit more ready in this game. The Giants have already played the Vikings a few weeks ago, and they played them fairly well in the last meeting. Vikings defense has really struggled. Kirk Cousins actually did play last week. He went 17 of 20, 225 yards, 1 touchdown, and no interceptions. The odds makers have the Vikings as a 3-point favorite in this one here. That number might go to 2.5, maybe 2, maybe 1.5. When I look at the minute with the Vikings defense, they have really, really struggled. Explain that they had to come from behind against the Colts with that 33-point comeback, and really that the Vikings defense really did a terrible job in that game, and then the game against the Packers where they easily got blown out. I don't know which Vikings team is going to show up here. And that is why I'm leaning more towards the Giants. I think the Giants are going to pull an upset in this one here. Obviously, the running game is strong. The Vikings defense, there's too many question marks on that Vikings defense. Are they going to show up in this game? That is why it brings to me a lot of question marks for this team. They are a team that won 12 games, 13 games, but yet they don't seem like a team that is dominant. Their defense really struggled. And that is one of the reasons why I don't know if I trust the Vikings now to even get to the divisional round. And when I look at this game, it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Giants, Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, they do fairly well in this game and they end up pulling the upset in this one. And I'm going with the Giants here. I think the Giants will pull the upset against the Vikings because I don't trust the Vikings defense at all. They have played terribly. And if they can't stop the run and they can't stop Saquon Barkley and all that, I think the Vikings are in for a long game. It should be a close game in this one here. I can see this being close. But I'm going with the Giants here. I think the Giants are going to pull the upset in this one here. And that's going to be one of my upset picks of the weekend. I'm going to pick the Giants at +3. Giants over the Vikings. And finally, the NFC wildcard game number 3. The Dallas Cowboys versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Dallas Cowboys, the favorite number has moved up so much during the week. It went from 1.5, now to 2.5. Currently, right now, as the odds makers currently have this, is a 2.5-point favorite for the Cowboys. Prescott was 14 of 37, 120 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interceptions. Tom Brady played for a little bit in his last game. He only went 13 of 17, 84 yards, and 1 touchdown, and no interceptions. Given the Dallas Cowboys defense, which really played fairly well up until the last part of the season, they're another team that's got huge question marks on their defense. And if their defense is going to struggle against Tom Brady and that offense and all that, given what Dak Prescott, he didn't play in that offense. They played terribly against the Commanders. You got to wonder if the Cowboys are going to show up in this game. They've been a huge question mark throughout this whole season, given the fact that they look like they were a more dominant team this season than they've been in the previous seasons. And then in the end of the regular season, they really, really played like crap. I don't know if the Cowboys are going to beat the Buccaneers. And given the Cowboys should beat the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers had a much more rough season than they have. Given how Tom Brady and that Tampa Bay offense, given that they won the division, the NFC South was really terrible. All teams played terrible in that whole division. But when I look at it this way, look, Tampa Bay's defense really did a great job in the first meeting because the Cowboys played the Bucs in week 1, and they played them fairly well. And it would not surprise me if Tom Brady does it again to the Cowboys. Like I said earlier in the video, he's undefeated against Dallas. And I'm not going to bet against that, especially Tom Brady in the postseason, where he's dangerous. I just think the Buccaneers are going to beat the Cowboys here. I think that the Cowboys' woes and the problems that they have are going to continue. And obviously, there'll be question marks in the offseason for the Cowboys. I'm going to pick the Buccaneers at +2.5. I think they're going to beat them. The Cowboys, I don't know if I trust them going into the postseason. It just seems like the Cowboys seem to just fall apart in the playoffs. And I'm not going to bet against Tom Brady here. I think the Buccaneers are going to beat the Cowboys here, and that's my pick for this one here. I'm going to pick the Buccaneers at +2.5. Buccaneers over the Cowboys. All right, everybody. I'm going to wrap this video up now. This video is already long. Thank you for watching and listening in. And guys, I'll talk to you guys next week when we talk about the divisional round. Take care and enjoy this playoff weekend.